so these just came fresh off the build plate. So essentially what's going to happen is I am going to do a rough sand on all of these as well as priming and bondo and all that. But sanding them individually is really going to help get those layer lines out, and it's going to make doing the priming and bondo so much easier. So yeah, let's get to the first layer of sanding. Okay, so now that we have all these nice and sanded, we are going to glue them all together. There's a couple different options you can use. The one that I'm going to be using is this PLA 3D Gloop. It chemically welds the pieces together, which I find is the best adhesion. Another one that I like to use is Weld on 16, which is an acrylic cement, which also works very well. You get a little bit more working time out of it rather than having to be very quick with the 3D Gloop. But the 3D Gloop adhesion is definitely better. So that's the one we're going to be sticking with today. And yeah, let's get this whole thing put together.
What follows is a brief construction montage. We hope you enjoyed this brief construction montage.
Okay, so that took way longer than expected. But anyway, I got the whole thing put together, glued, and primed. So now we are going to move on to the bondoing stage. We're going to move on and start using some bondo to fill in any of the layer lines that either the primer couldn't fill in or that the 3D welding couldn't fill in. So the bondo that I use for this is the glazing spot putty bondo. Normally it's sold in smaller tubes, but I got this big one off Amazon. Clearly it's been used a lot. There's still a lot of product in there, so it's lasted me a really long time, but it's definitely my preferred one. It just dries and sands really nice, and it fills in really nice. I'll definitely be leaving a link in the description to everything that I use here, but while I got the time, feel free to subscribe, like the video, all that. Alrighty, now that all that self-promo is out of the way, let's just jump right into filling this whole thing with bondo and making her look all nice and pretty. Alright, so now that all that bondo is out of the way, basically what I want to do now is just a light sand with a 220 grit sandpaper over the whole thing and just really bring the bondo down a little bit. There are a couple wet spots still, so I'm just going to let it dry overnight before I go ahead and do that. The reason I'm doing a lighter sanding is because I really don't want to lose any of the detail onto it, because there is a lot of wood grain and I don't want to file that down too much to really lose all of that. But anyway, so I'll see you guys tomorrow and we'll finish this whole thing up. Okay, so now that the sanding with the 220 sandpaper is done, basically it actually worked a lot better on the seam. The bondo worked a lot better on the seams than I originally had thought. So I'm just gonna give her a quick wash and just in the sink, and then after that I'm gonna do another coat of primer and give her just a little bit of a feel to see how I like her and how smooth she is. And luckily I didn't lose too much of the detail. It did get in the cracks a little bit, but because most of the cracks are covered up by a darker color, you really won't see the layer lines, but it feels really smooth. Everything feels really, really good. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. So let's give her a bath and do another coat of primer. Okay, so now that the second round of primer is done, it is still drying a little bit, but it's not that bad. Um, so there are still some spots that I think will be okay. The bondo did help a lot, and the sanding did help a lot. I'm afraid I'm going to lose a little bit more detail if I do any more bondo, but right here in this little crevice, I might do a little bit more, and then against this seam and this seam, I might do a little bit more. Um, but other than that, it looks really, really good. I'm really happy with how this one is coming out. So I think we're almost ready to start painting. Um, so yeah, let me just do a little bit more bondo and I'll catch you when we're starting to paint. Okay, so I decided against doing another coat of bondo mainly because I hate sanding and I don't think it's necessary because a lot of where the seam lines are, they're going to be covered up by darker paint, so they're really not going to see them. I'm also very, very detail oriented, so when I look at my own artwork, I only see the mistakes that I make. So it's more of like a me thing to be a perfectionist, and I honestly don't think the client is going to um, I really don't think the client is going to notice these seam lines because they are covered up very well. I'm just very, very nitpicky. So we're just going to get straight to the painting, and the colors that I'm going to use are dioxide purple, um, titanium white, and Mars black. So titanium white, Mars black are going to be like the three main colors that I use. I always use Liquitex Basics. They're a really great acrylic paint that I really like. I have some extra because I have a basic like set. I have some extra like little purple ones that I might use first before I get into the big tube. I use this um, cadmium red for the horns as well as this like this middle bit around the eyes, and then I use the Napful Crimson for around the eyes to give it like that gradient with the cadmium orange hue and the primary yellow. So that's usually what I use for the eyes. I'm going to be using Hooker's Green hue for the center of the eyes, as well as the horns, and I'm going to use primary yellow um, like for the main color of the horns. But anyway, let's just get into it. I'll leave a link in the description for everything that I use, or all the colors that I use. So if you guys wanted to make one of these yourselves, those are the colors that I use. Um, yeah, so let's get into painting. Here she is all in her finished glory. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it through to the end of the video, please make sure to leave a thumbs up. It really helps my channel grow so I can keep making more projects for you guys. If you did have any suggestions of stuff you want to see me make, feel free to leave a comment down below or subscribe if you want to keep track of all the rest of my projects. In the meantime, I'll see you guys in the next one.